Recording from a traveling tin can parked somewhere in the USA, it's the Bird Daddy-O podcast. It's the podcast that's like life in reverse. You understand less as the time goes by. Now let's welcome our hosts, Trauma and Jen, as we unfocus on the Bird Daddy-O podcast.
Okay, we're back. And we were discussing ADHD and parenting. Jen and I are both parents of Margot, who is 3.5, going on super annoying. Hopefully she'll grow out of that. Anything to say about Margot before we move on to the thing we were talking about beforehand and wrapping that up?
She's a force.
She is a force. That's what I say to people, and they kind of get it. She is a force. She's going to be a force.
Yeah.
As she gets older. Be interesting having her in the same house with us.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we'll move her outside to the chicken coop.
I was thinking about building her a really cool tree fort.
Yeah. So, we were kind of talking about, let's wrap up, the importance of self-care, I think is what we're talking about. You're talking about like time for yourself, to be creative. Really, it's like that time for self-care that everybody needs. Everybody, I think, makes overly important because it's got to be like self-care could be like having 10 minutes to meditate, think about things, but people got to be like, no, I have to be on the beach in Barcelona, and completely pampered for, I have to spend $1 million to make self-care happen. And I think it's because they don't understand what self is or have any, it just becomes material instead of a spiritual thing, which is supposedly what you're learning about these days. But, is self-care important?
It's extremely important, and I've learned that the hard way.
Do you think it's more important in managing ADHD?
Yes, totally.
Do you think that do you need more or different types of self-care? Do you even know? It seems very important to you.
It depends on, the mood at the time. So there's one day I was just having a real hard time with just life in general. Being a mom, being overwhelmed and stimulated with work, and everything just kind of came down to me. And you know what I did?
No.
It made me feel amazing. I'm like, I just asked myself, what do I want right now? And I said, I want a motherfucking massage. So I went and I got a massage, and after that I wanted a chai latte, and then I wanted to go walk in the woods. So it is. I took my shoes off, and I went walking around a nice lake near us, and then I picked up Margot from daycare, and I felt so grounded, and I felt like I came back into myself after months of just being lost, I think. So I think each time's a little different, but I would say most of the time, if I go long stints of time without exercising, I find myself going into this really dark place. So I've learned the hard way, especially with crazy hormones going on when you're a mother or parent in general, is exercise is very important to get your hormones balanced, adrenaline going.
Right. So, do you see it having impacts on your family life? Because we have to squirrel away this time.
Yeah, it's the thing. The biggest challenge, I think, with parenthood in general is finding time for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to think, okay, so this is the problem with ADHD is time management.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very hard time, and nothing with me is consistent. I don't work by alarm. Some ADHDers can function by alarm clocks.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have a consistent alarm. If I wake up to an alarm clock, I instantly get pissed off. So I have to wake up. You do need it sometimes,
but
right?
Then you also relate, you're also there are times where you'll get up late and be like, oh no, I had to do something. And it's because you relied on me to have an alarm to get up and then wake you up for some a magical reason, which is a lot of stress.
The only time I use an alarm is if I have to book a flight, if I have a flight,
mm-hmm.
or if I've a rare occasional talk I have to do real early in the morning.
And I think whatever you are when you sleep projects on me because I'm the one, I have anxiety about flight schedules and being having a great time in a foreign country and then being wait, when's my plane back? And never having the information to know when I'm supposed to be getting ready to leave. Yeah. So I have I develop your flight anxiety.
I hate flying before the sun comes up. I hate that so much. I avoid that as much as possible unless we go out of the country.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. This is one, you said you like explain. I mean, I see that you said you like explaining things to Margot rather than making ultimatums and demands.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I see that. I also see, you try to explain a bit about your outlook on a situation and how it's making you feel, and sharing with having Margot share how she feels about it. Like, we have to leave and she's not getting dressed, so you say you're frustrated. She's like, well, I'm frustrated too because I don't want to get dressed.
Yeah.
That's pretty common, I think, as kids learn that level of communication, and it's great that you are talking to her like an adult when it comes to these things and not just sort of like sugarcoating it all the time. But one thing is, have you, do you feel you have explained ADHD or any of your ADHD traits to her? Do you plan on doing that? And what if she's showing certain things as well?
Okay, so I have not explained to her my diagnosis. I'm still
Straight
kind of figuring out how or when I will explain that to her, because I don't want to look like ADHD to her. I don't want her to see me as a label. So I do, like, if I feel a certain something, I will be very verbal with her. Like you said, I'll be like, I'm feeling very frustrated now. So cause she's gonna feel, all kids feel emotion, so if I'm acting frustrated or angry, she's gonna feel it and she might get scared.
Right. So
But if I say to I say to her, listen, I feel frustrated because,
right.
like, you're doing this, you're doing that. So it's not like, I don't say because you're doing it. I'll be like, I'm feeling frustrated because we would like you to go to bed on time tonight so that we can wake up early to go so you can get to school on time tomorrow. So I'll say something like that.
No, that's probably somewhere sound logic on it. I also, when I deal with things, I don't immediately jump to neurodivergence as the thing, but I mean, part of it is wearing that coat, wearing that shirt, wearing that story. And I'll say to her things about like what's going on, because she has been noticing more and more sometimes when your focus is diverted from her.
Yeah.
It's usually a bit of a squeaking and then it stops. Sometimes it's intense. And also, she will notice when you're focused on something else, and she'll ask you or swat the phone out of your hand or something like that, like "no phone, mama," kind of thing. Which welcome to 2024 and parenting with millennial. So I think I've explained to her sometimes where she's like, she'll ask a question about it and why, and I won't like say, well, it's because mama has ADHD. I'll basically be like, well, mama's really focused on something right now that's important to her, so we have to like just give her a little bit more time. So why don't, and then she just like runs in to wake you up anyway. So
yeah, I don't think, I wouldn't like to even say the name ADHD, because then it becomes an excuse, kind of. So she'll see it as an excuse, like, oh, well, mom has ADHD, so it's okay for her to behave this way, but it doesn't mean it's okay.
I don't. There's nothing. Well, I mean, that's also coming from a place where it's something that's wrong. Obviously, you're diverting attention from her, but like I said, that happens normally, and she has to learn how to deal with it. I just basically, when she asks, like, this is taking a long time or something, I'm just like, well, sometimes things take a long time, or why was someone angry, or why were you frustrated? I think sometimes she's frustrated when this happens, so. I'm not explaining to her that it's ADHD or anything like that. She's saying, like, that's what happened. It's like mama was focused on something and needed to get it done, and if you keep bugging her, she might seem angry to you when she replies because she's focused on it, and that's what happens. Just like if you're focused on something and I come over and annoy you, you'll like physically push me out of the way, right? And I'm like, hey,
I didn't know I did that.
No, she's done that. You know how like when she's doing something and she's like throws your hand out of the way. Yeah, like don't touch my Play-Doh, I can do it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's kind of the same thing, and she kind of gets it. But I mean, I think eventually, she's going to start notice. It's just like when you get diagnosed, you're like, oh, weight's lifted. Now I know why I'm like this.
Yeah.
She's eventually going to see behaviors and ask why, and not to make it an excuse, but just to explain the things that might not seem rational to her. It's like, why did mama get so upset when I didn't do anything? And it's like, well, you gotta be careful because those kinds of things do this or this, or dealing with someone with severe depression, that's even worse with certain things, because you gotta explain why that's going on. But yeah, there's a time and place, I guess. I'm not really sure when it is, or I mean, how other people deal with it. I'm sure they have their stories, and it's important to share them, because someone's going to have to find a way and know either what they're doing has happened before, or whether it's just to kind of get the fact that I think this is normal and what's happening, and it's just a little bit more intense because we have to deal with the fact that with the genetics the way they are, there's a chance she could have the same similar traits.
It was like sad the other day because she woke up and I was like, Marco, we had to go take a bath. And she's like, no, I have to work first. And she ripped a keyboard out of the monitor and she took it and she started like pretend typing on it, saying, Mama, I'm working. It was so sad. I'm like, do I really work that much?
It just doesn't. I don't think it has to be a much. It has to happen at the time when they need
They need something.
Yeah, like, and it's their needs are like strong, and it's like and you didn't show up for that one. Like, yeah, that's when you kind of notice it, like because kids are like 100% like pure honesty, like they're like, why don't you grow hair on your head, Uncle Trauma? Because I'm bald. Let me explain testosterone and men to you, and try not to get arrested. I mean, like, come on, man, it's like ridiculous.
But you know what? Kids are so intuitive.
Yeah,
it's funny. Like today, we were in the stone shop, and I said to Margo, I'm like, go in here, and they had this table with like probably, I don't know, maybe like 50 to 100 different types of stones. And I said, just go find a stone you like, see what feels right, what color you like, just walk around, pick one up. And she ended up finding red jasper. And I'm like, it's so funny because when I go back to my childhood, I'm like, I collected stones as well, and I found stones that I liked, and I would store them in a little box, and it just always felt good to me. It was like, what I'm getting at is like children are very intuitive, and they're very receptive to energy in their environment, and it's very pure. Like it's not dampened by the thought of shit they gotta do tomorrow. It's just they're in themselves.
Right. Well,
so I'm saying like they can feel everything around them. So we have to be very careful about what we say, what we do. Even if you feel an emotion and you're not even saying or acting on it, I'm pretty convinced that they could feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of people. It's like that, and you just don't think about it because it's so it takes a lot of effort to think about the way everybody else might be seeing this. But you can assume either they're ignoring it or not. But with your own child, I mean, obviously part of it, she likes this stuff because we're doing it and encouraging it, as something that we see attractive, and she also might be picking that up. But we're not. I don't think we use it as some sort of. I don't know. There's always like an open outlook to it, like trying not to put our own, like this is something I like, versus this is the best thing in the world, right? Is something that is different because they can make their own choice if they like it or not. And I find that very difficult. I'm also, very happy when you start noticing your kid making their own decisions and not seeing them sort of just parroting what you're doing, and seeing that sort of morphing into their own person and what they like about it, and not just being a stereotype of what their parents say. And I agree 100% that it's extremely interesting situation, because anything you say or do that you don't even catch, they pick up on, and they will do. And this is where they learn things that are great and things that are horrible. So all the horrible things you do, they will pick up on. All the great things you do, they will pick up on.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's sometimes you just never notice it because it's just normal to say things that, when they come out of a kid in an honest situation, are just like, wow, I didn't realize I was that horrible about something, or like, oh, it's good that you know that, like, because it's an interesting fact, right? So teach them trivia, because
yeah, that's like my biggest thing. So every time, and every time I travel without her or without you, like I always write a note. God forbid anything were to happen to me, so at least she has something, like when I'm dead, I don't know why I said yo.
Yeah.
And so on every single note, I always say to her, like, always like what you like, and don't like something because someone else likes it. Like, I want her to be her own person. So that's literally my biggest goal for her in life in general. Like, it's literally, I think about that every day. Like, I don't want her to, I monitor her with this. Like, when she makes a choice, I'm like, does she make this choice because I like this? or is she actually doing that for herself? And so far, I think she's like actually listening to her true self.
Well, she is, but I mean, they naturally look for affirmation,
Yeah.
right? You know, she's like eating something, like, "Hey, do you want some of this?" It's like, "Do you think it's good?" You know, if she's playing with something, like, "Isn't that interesting?" She'll be babbling about something, like, "Isn't that an interesting story?" "Yeah, that is an interesting story." What'd she say? "I don't know." You know, like, what's she talking about? I'm not really sure. But yeah, I think like that she's starting to create her own like things, and her own imagination is coming out,
Yeah.
and her own person, which
She makes
is,
her own songs on the table bells.
yeah. So yeah, but she's still looking for that, like, was that good? And you're like, that was loud. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
run in a different room.
Put earplugs in.
It was great. Why? Because I can't hear it. Yeah,
Hurts my ears so much.
agreed. So one thing I did notice before you, there was I'm terrible with social media. I don't necessarily like it, but I understand what kind of tool it is, and I do try to find out what other ADHDers are talking about, and want to share things with them. But one was just talking about which would you rather believe or have working for you, a PhD scientist researching a subject, or an ADHD or hyper focused on the same subject? Like, which one would you trust with the information? And I'm like, absolutely, probably the ADHD that's like focused on that thing, because before you got pregnant, you did some research and asked a bunch of people, should I have a kid? What's it like? That fated question that the new ovary ticking time bomb woman asks all of her friends who either have like jumped that gun and had kids already, or or those who haven't, and how they see it. And of course, like, all the mothers like, it's the greatest thing ever, and everybody else is like, oh my god, I hate my life.
Yeah.
And you like come up with the total sum of, okay, seems to not be that bad. Maybe I want to do this. But so I think you look for messages of encouragement about parenting, right? If you had a chance to give someone a piece of advice about parenting with ADHD, what would you give them?
Oh my god.
Man, Jen, I'm really thinking about starting a family.
Yeah, I would honestly say just know that it's going to be a lot of work, and just plan how you're going to find time for you. That's
You think that's any different for someone with ADHD, except it's going to be harder? And
I think, yeah, because I mean, anyone, not everyone, but a lot of people can get anxiety, depression. But I think people like us, it's easier for us to get into depression or have anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually clinically proven.
Yes.
So, I think that is a struggle for me every day, is juggling, like, trying to not be anxious, not be depressed. So I think the first thing you should look at with any new challenge will be health. So I would say definitely keep your mental health in check. I would travel to the place that makes you happy best before you have a child, which is actually what we did. And I would meditate for at least a week.
Soak it in.
And seriously, like, learn who you are, know what you like, for real. Like, who are you? And if you know yourself, like, you're ready to have a kid. If you don't know yourself, I would say don't have a kid.
Okay.
You need to be mentally stable, and you need to know yourself.
Right, and be prepared to change it.
Yeah. And you also, once you have the kid, you can't forget yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did. I forgot myself for about 2 years. And I woke up one day, I was overweight. I looked in the mirror, I had no spark left. I was exhausted. I just didn't look healthy. And it's because I let myself go, because naturally you want to put all your time and effort into this one thing that you're
Right.
trying to keep alive, and you want it to survive successfully. And you just kind of, you'll die for it, really, because you're so focused on it. And then you wake up, it's kind of like they say, like, you know, if you're in a plane crash, like you put the oxygen on yourself first before you put it on whatever. It's kind of like that. Like
Clean
make
your
sure
house.
that you're safe, you're mentally sound, you're physically well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people around you will suffer.
Right. That's what I think is. I think it's a doctor heal thyself.
Yeah.
But be ready to have someone else involved, because I understand that having that time, that alone time, is extremely important, but it's not the same, and to demand it to be the same sometimes is difficult for everyone. So I guess your advice, if I paraphrase it, is make sure you're mentally stable, especially for the ADHDers. You know, that you're coping with it the best you can, you feel comfortable with some of the things that are there, and so that and then self-awareness, you know, are you happy with where you are, and are you ready, you know, sort of that kind of thing, because if you don't know enough to know that,
yeah,
and be ready to throw it all away,
don't do it.
Don't do it.
I'm telling you, like, if you're not ready, it's going to be such a struggle.
Right.
You need to be mentally prepared for this,
Right.
for this challenge.
And I think, do I have something to add to that as someone dealing with someone with ADHD? I think it's one thing that I overlook, but I think it's even more important because of the ADHD, is having, you know, unfortunately, sometimes this happens with parents. You're in it alone, in a sense, like you might not have a co-partner in it. But,
and sometimes you do, but that co-partner isn't
right, but
communicating with you.
Right,
so it
but they're
feels like
still
you're alone.
there, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think if you have the ability to co-parent, finding someone who's like the patience and dealing with the ADHD in a positive way is very important, or having family around, you know, like I think it's been very double-edged sword, but it's been helpful to have family close by to help in times of need. And you're very attuned to not take advantage of it, which I love, because I hate taking advantage of those kinds of things, because I have that that OCD trait of like just you know, wanting to do things myself. It has a name, but I have to have my autonomy about it, and I want to be able to show that we can do it ourselves. And you have that sense too. It's not that more or less pride; it's almost just irrational. Like I have to do it myself. Like, well, your fingers are bleeding. So
we also don't want to burden people, you know.
Right, that too. You have it as an empathy, and I have it as I'm a dirt diet. I have ADHD. I'm like, well, I can't handle it. Start stuttering, freak out. But yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it is. I think you're right. I think we agree with the just make sure you have. I mean, people are worried about money and things like that. Whatever. It's mental stability. It's understanding what makes you. It's understanding what makes you happy, and that self-awareness, and then knowing that there are others who can support you, not just by, you know, hey, we come and have a drink and forget it. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think it's good to have the normal crutches that help sedate the anxiety and be like, let's take you away from that.
Yeah.
You know, I know that's an easy thing, but sometimes people aren't very well conditioned to move away from it and be positive. It's always like, let's go and forget, let's dive down, let's, you know, it's always like, I just need to relax and get wasted. I'm like, wait, what? You know, like it's not 21 time. It's like, it just seems like when people, it's like one of those, it's just a natural thing. Like with parenting, I wish there was another place to go than this feeling like I'm not a parent and I'm just a freaking juvenile asshole is the only other way to not to sort of self-set. I think that's not good. I think it's like, I am a parent, I have this responsibility, how do I make the time, and how do I feel like help myself be a better person and parent and manager of time, not just I have to completely pretend I don't have a kid, you know, to make myself feel better. Because sometimes I see people who do that, and it becomes like their goal in life is to find as many ways as possible to forget they're a parent to make themselves feel better. And then when they're around their kid, they forget they're a parent, and their kid just like, they're just like, yeah, Billy, whatever. Like they just lose touch with the kid on the other end of that because they lose it. I don't know. So good advice, I guess, for that. And I guess is there anything encouraging? Yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of work. I think that's the one thing most people told you is a lot of work. And if you ask someone who just had a kid, they're still on freaking hormones that make them think the world's great. And they're lying about postpartum and they're lying about pain.
Well, that's what I learned. So I am not afraid to ask these questions to anybody about. I want truth, But when I probably spent 3 years of my life asking mothers what it's like being a mother, and I would say about 98% of them lied to me.
Yeah.
No one talks about the pain you go through, like when you actually have the child. No one talked about the mental distress you go through, like immediately after the child, and just all you can do is cry because there's no one that can help you, unless you're a multimillionaire and you can afford like a night nurse or something. But like, there's so much responsibility on you, and no one talks about these kinds of things. No one talks about how before you leave the hospital, you have to pee in a cup with the nurse watching you, and they have to measure how much blood comes out of you so they can tell you whether or not it's good to go home. Those kinds of things they don't talk about.
They did that.
Yeah. Or like breastfeeding.
Well,
who would have fucking thought?
That's
like my father has this notion.
Do it. That's so hard.
He's like, women have been doing this for years. Like, why can't you do it? Why is it so hard for you? Like, I did it, but I also
have for 2 kids because one of them usually dies.
Yeah, back then they had villages of people that trained you and taught you how to do it. We don't have that now. We were in the middle of COVID.
You're lucky that we had decent nurses and there wasn't a lot of people in labor and delivery.
But you think you just like pinch the nipple and milk comes out? That's not how it works. You gotta like push, like squeeze it and like push down and in at the same time. Like it's not just like you look at it and it comes out. Like it looks, you have to actually. You would think it would be innate, but it's not. You have to like push in, push down, and like.
Do we count the listeners who knew this would turn into a lactation consultation?
Oh, it's just so funny. It's just these things no one talks about, but these are the kinds of things that like make you or could put you into a downward spiral because you want the best. It's like my goal. My goal is to breastfeed. My goal is to have like a shit ton of milk stored in the freezer, and of course, like post COVID, I wanted those antibodies in there. And it didn't just happen. I couldn't just fucking milk myself. I had to learn how to do it. It was not innate.
Oh, God.
And then it becomes, I'm the worst female on the planet. I can't even fucking milk my own tits.
Let alone feed your own kid.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, so.
Don't worry. There's a stage in her life where I don't think you can keep them away from chicken nuggets and pizza. No matter what you do. You can feed them organic, like raindrops. But something happens and someone puts a chicken nugget in their face and then you gotta like isolate them on a commune, I guess, where there's only raindrops to eat.
I would love that.
Okay. Well, think of all the things you're going to be giving up, like that jacket and the money to get the stuff that is natural.
Well, I would be able to make my own jacket.
Oh, okay. Out of palm leaves.
Like sheep.
Sheep?
I would
make a sheep jacket.
I would make my own string.
Spin your own
yarn.
Spin your own yarns.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're spinning your own yarn. What?
Alpacas.
Well, that'd be a lot more fun because they spit on you. Have you ever forgotten something really important for the kid because of ADHD? Like birthday card, school event?
No.
I think we've forgotten school. I think we've mixed.
I mean, just lately, because I think like the buzz of like the new daycare kind of buzzed off of us. So like things like we forgot like pajama day or
any of the things on a calendar that I don't have.
Like we don't have that physically in front of us. We don't print it out. It's on our phones.
It's like thankfully I don't think Margot's kind of dense to it too, because we like walk in and like all the kids are wearing pajamas. And she's not like, I'm supposed to wear pajamas. So I'm like, I don't even know if you have pajamas. She doesn't wear pajamas.
But it's a thing for kids. Like for example, she used to have a nanny.
We mixed up picture days.
Yeah, but she used to have a nanny, and there were other kids that were with this nanny, and the one kid, it was like you had to wear a shirt that had 100 of anything on it, like glued to it.
Uh-huh.
And this kid's mother forgot that day, but the nanny's like, this kid's gonna go to school, and all his friends are gonna have 100 eyeballs on their shirts or something, and he's gonna be the only one without it. That could be like detrimental.
He could have 100 tears on his shirt.
But seriously, that could really that could be a memory for that kid that he'll
Yeah.
carry with him for the rest of his life. Imagine if he gets picked on once just because he didn't have 100 eyeballs on his shirt, and that's it forms who he is.
Yeah, but we still forget pajama day and picture day. I mean, you didn't forget when you could buy chocolate. You definitely got the chocolate.
They sent me home. Like I always I'm like, oh, I went to the store today and I got like all of these colored plates and colored
They
napkins.
sent you home with a ton of
They
shit.
sent me home with all of it because they're like, well, we don't celebrate that here. Like St. Patrick's Day.
Oh yeah, I know you should probably But there's no snakes.
I sent them all in birdhouses to paint.
Sometimes I forget there's 3 and I send in choking hazards. Like whatever. But like you never left her in the car or left something. I mean, like never left the carrier on top of that.
No. I like I said, I'm so obsessed.
It's just the outside influences that those weird things that society produces, like pajama days.
You know what? Things I might forget, like her chicken nuggets go in the microwave for 1 minute and 20 seconds, and then while that's going, I'll do something and I'll forget it in there. And then she's like, "Mama, my chicken nuggets!" I'm like, "Oh shit, I forgot about those."
But not a birthday. We
haven't gotten like anything like important. I don't think.
Like we're like, oh man, it's Margot's graduation.
No,
I was totally hyper focused on. I don't know. By then it'll be like, who knows what we'll be hyper focused on time travel.
Yeah. I'm into it.
Yeah, but have you ever used your ADHD as an excuse to avoid certain things or responsibilities?
I'm not that kind of person, though. No. I would never do that.
No, you just tell me I'm not emptying a dishwasher right now or ever, so you're doing it.
No, but seriously, like, when it comes to like 8:30, 9 o'clock, I think because I'm so exhausted, because I don't know, because you don't have this problem, the ADHD problem. My brain's constant all day, multiple, like, it's just shooting like a freaking firework all day, and I just get to a point where I'm so tired. So the last thing that I'm gonna do is fold laundry or do the fucking dishes. Okay, that can wait.
The machine does the dishes.
No, but then you gotta dry. It's gotta dry. You gotta unload it. But I'm not doing laundry past late 39. I don't give a shit. It's not happening. And I think you know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, I don't think it comes up as an excuse though. That's just an ultimatum. Like it's not going to happen.
But that could be because I don't know if it's ADHD or not. But like, it's not like. Well, you're
not saying like I'm not doing that because I'm forgetful. I'm gonna forget it. It's just well, I mean, to be honest, every couple with a baby or a dog or a cat, I can relate to the cat more than anything else. The cat, if you have a cat, your cat is going to yak on your rug. And I don't care who you are, you're going to play a game of I didn't see that, not it. Right? Like, I will know because you hear a cat yakking at 2 a.m. And come 8 o'clock in the morning and you've been up for 2 hours, I know you've stepped in that cat yak. And you're just like, not there. I'll wait till Trauma gets up because he'll see it too. And he'll clean it up. I will admit, I've probably done the same thing a million times but the cat hasn't yacked a million times, but there's definitely that, like, especially with cat yak.
Yeah.
When the cat vomits, you hear it, you know it. You're like, oh, I know that happened. I'm not going out there because as soon as I see it, well, no, I'm just going to avoid. Nope, not it.
I still don't know where her litter box is.
Because it's magic. Because I think you scooped her litter box once.
Yeah.
I think you're still using the excuse of pregnancy. I'm like, yeah, the kid's 3.5. You might want to scoop a litter box. Nope, I just do it. Or actually, the machine does it, just like the dishes.
Which reminds me, as a similar topic, like I think that things just magically appear. Like if I run out of like lemons in the fridge, I cannot believe that I'm out of lemons. So I keep opening the fridge, like thinking it's just gonna appear in like a random shelf or something.
That's how it is sometimes. I hope with Margot getting dressed in the morning because you've been up for an hour, and I'm just like, hopefully I just walk out there again and they'll be dressed. It's been an hour. Nope, still buck naked, sitting there painting a picture of a parrot. So wrapping up, reflecting on your journey in parenting, everything we've talked about here, would you say your current family dynamic, specifically partner, me, child parenting Margot, has that helped or hindered your managing your ADHD?
I think it's helped me see it more. It's made my ADHD more visible to me because I'm forced to now look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped me in a sense where I'm like, oh wow, I really am like this. I have been responding this way, and I didn't really realize like that I did these things. But then again, now that I see it, I get a little upset, I think, because I don't have the same freedoms that I thought I had, you know?
You're not a badass?
Yeah.
Just get the leather jacket.
But I think seeing it, you're able to manage it. I've been healthier, I think. Like, I haven't been drinking, you know, I've been managing it in healthier ways, I think, because I do see it. So I think if you have the money, like extra money, which we don't currently have because we spend it all on camping, I think. Yeah. But if you have the extra money, I think it's worth getting at least a maid, or what do they call it? A cleaning person.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's just support. I mean, that's number one. Yeah. And I think just whether it's family members or something to help, I think you have to be honest about the need for that and wanting to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And that will help clear space for your mentalness, exercise, building your strength, your mental strength. But then also realizing you might need help in a more mental health capacity, whether it be having the time for therapy or having more communication like this that helps us be more understanding of the situation.
And you also need to learn how to, at least I need to learn how to surrender. So, like cutting the grass. Like I used to love cutting the grass, and it was like my therapy, and also like pride, like I was doing something yourself. Mm-hmm. I was raised to how to do my own everything for myself, to be efficient. And when I just didn't have the time to do that anymore, I had to learn to surrender to that and like hire someone to do it for me. And that gave me the time to like sit down and eat dinner with you and Margot. Yeah. Something like that. And it's hard, especially with if you're raised like how I was, to be self-sufficient. Right. Like it's hard to let that go. But I mean, who we are today might not be who we are tomorrow. We all grow in different directions over the course of time.
And that wraps up another absolutely fabulous episode of the Bird Daddy-O podcast. Please subscribe, and share this podcast. Your support fuels the fires and feeds the chickens. Special thanks to Trauma at Bird Daddy-O for the fantastic production. And of course, a huge shout out to Spotify for hosting our podcast and providing incredible tools for podcast creators like us. We couldn't do it without you. Don't forget to tune in next time for more fun and insightful discussions about all things ADHD and chicken. Until then, have an excellent day, and remember to be kind.